Now, based on the given data, I would like to determine the average salaries, that would be overall as well as department-wise, and the engagement type-wise. So let us start with typing average salaries here. Now that's a heading for this particular section. So I make this look bold. I need to type payroll and contract here. Well, I can skip that by blindly copying this and pasting here. Maintains uniformity as well and saves time. Now, generally, it would be quite convenient for us to determine the averages when you have the total figures over here, the total salaries, as well as the total employee count over here. It's quite easy then. All we need to do will be hit the equal sign, click on salaries, divided by the corresponding employee count. Now, since the tables are arranged in a standard format, over here we have the employee count, salaries, as well as the average salaries layout as a standard. It would be quite convenient for us to just drag this formula over here or just copy and paste it down. All right, now that's quite easy here. But I want to try something different here. What if the total count was never calculated? What if the total salaries were never calculated? Now, there was a lot of efforts that went under determining these different functions that we had used. But what if all you needed was the averages? So this would have been an unnecessary effort at that time. Considering that scenario, we have another option here. I'll just clear this off. We'll make use of a function in Excel called average. So we have an average function that makes our job a lot easy if getting averages is the only requirement. So I select the function average, I select the entire column of annual salaries and then close the bracket, and here we have it. You may want to cross-verify this. Just select this entire column and take a look at the bottom part of this window where we see the totals. The total are exactly what we had earlier. Count of 25, yes, we have 25 records here or 25 employees. The average salary, it shows as 81,984, and that's what we have derived using the average function as well. So the function works perfectly. Now moving on, I would also like to know what is the overall salary towards those on payroll, or rather the average of the overall salaries towards payroll employees. So now here, it would not be easy for us to use the average function. It's not feasible here because indiscriminately, it considers all the numbers that are selected. So you have one option by using the average function. Either you manually select those records which are on payroll and then hit a comma and then select some more cells, then again comma, and one more here and here again with a comma, and then here again hit a comma and select these two rows, and then a comma again and two more, comma, and these two. All right, we have selected all the payroll employees and close the bracket and hit enter. Well, by doing this, it's a lot of manual efforts over here. Now just imagine if you had more than 100 or 200 records. How would you do this? Many companies have employees not only in hundreds, but also in thousands. It would be a laborious task. So we have undo this. We'll make use of another function called as average if. Now under average if, first it's asking for range and then criteria and then average range. Make a careful note of this. First it's asking for range, which is nothing but the criteria range. First tell me where do you want to apply the criteria. That's what Excel is asking. So we want the criteria is the payroll, that is a form of engagement type. So we select the engagement type column. I hit comma. Now it's asking for criteria. So I select the criteria, that's the payroll, comma, average range. Now what do you want to take an average of? I want to take an average of the annual salaries. So I select this entire column, close the bracket and hit enter. Alright, we arrive to the same number. Now let us do a cross check of this. Again, I select all the employees under payroll. We have this payroll, we have this, and another one and two more here. Further, we have this payroll, two more, and that's it. What do we have here? The total salary towards payroll employees is 1,414,800. That's exactly what we had determined earlier. 16 employees under payroll, that's correct. And the average is 88,425. So even this function works pretty well. Now I would like to copy this formula down here, but there is an issue here. Take a look. I double click on the cell. The moment I copy paste this formula, the reference is also shifted down. I do not want that to happen. So I need to lock the reference for these two ranges using the $sign. Now since we are copying the formulas down, the reference is also shifting down by that many rows. So we need to lock the rows over here. So this is not the formula where we will be locking it, but the initial formula where we copied from. Let me undo this. The keyboard shortcut to undo would be Ctrl-Z as in zebra. And we have it here. Let me double click on this formula and put a $sign before the row numbers for the range which is in blue, that's the engagement type, and the other range for annual salaries. And then hit enter. Well, we do not need to lock the reference for the payroll over here, the red cell, because the moment we copy this down, we want it to shift to contract. So this is absolutely fine. I hit enter, the number is still the same. Copy this, paste it here, and we have it. Let's take this, and I would like this to be in a comma format and with few decimals as well. So this time I would select this entire range here and hit Ctrl Shift. I hold down the Ctrl and Shift keys on the keyboard and hit number 1 only once. Now mind you, this number 1 is the one with the exclamation. And we have this. We are not using the numeric keypad on the right side. So we have this average salaries. Now please do not try to correlate these totals. These will never tally with this. And the average of these two numbers will not make sense as compared to the overall average, because this is a different subset and this is a different subset over here. Now, if you take a total of this, you select both these cells, it's an average of these two that we get. And this will never, or mostly, it's highly unlikely that it would ever be the same as the average salaries. It's highly unlikely, very rare. So please do not try to correlate these numbers against the totals over here. You might want to manually cross-verify. That's a different story. Now similarly, I want to determine the average salaries based on each department. So again, we would use average if, and then we select the range. Now this time, what is the criteria that we are looking for? The department name. So the range would first be of department. Now again, I would like to lock the reference, but this time I would need to lock the column here as I would be copying the formula towards the right. So it's okay for me to lock the row as well. That's absolutely fine, but it's optional. But more important, I need to lock the column. So I put a $sign before the column, comma, and then the criteria. The criteria is marketing. And we don't need to apply any $sign over here because we would be copying this formula to the right and we want the reference, the red cell reference, to shift with the formula. So I click comma again. Now average range. What do you want to take an average of? I need to take an average of annual salaries. So I select this column. Again, I'll lock the column reference. If you want to lock the row reference, that's completely optional and that's fine. And just close the bracket and you have this 84,450 as the average. I can drag this formula or copy and paste this formula to the right. Let me tell you about another keyboard shortcut. If I want to apply this formula to the right, I hold down the Shift button on the keyboard and click on the right arrow key on the keyboard to highlight the cells, or I can just drag and select the cells. Okay. Now, if I want this formula to be copied to the right, I would hit Control R as in Roger or Control R as in right, and the formula is copied towards the right. Now, just don't think about Control L as in left, because we do not have a function as Control L as in left, wherein, let's say I have this formula over here, and here, for example, let me undo this. If I were to copy this formula and paste it here, and I want this to be copied to the left, there is no function or keyboard shortcut as Control L. It does a different job. Okay, so it's only Control R as in Roger that you have, or you can just drag. Okay,